Steeler Nation, happy Festivus. It is December 23rd. The holiday season is upon us, but it is also Immaculate Day, and we'll talk about that in a little bit too. My name is Bryan Davis. I am your bad Santa, and along with me is my favorite elf, Tony Defeo. Tony, what is going on?
Happy Festivus, Bryan. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas to everybody out there. And the season's not lost just yet.
It is not, and we're going to see if we can get a Festivus miracle. And since if you don't know what Festivus means, then you're not a fan of Seinfeld, and you don't understand the glory of Mr. Jerry Stiller in all his hilarity. It's really funny. Of course, I do celebrate Christmas. I know Tony does as well, but whether you're celebrating Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, whether you are celebrating Festivus, or whether you're just glad to be here, whether you go to St. Rooney's and that's your religion, that is fine as well. We are just glad to have you along with us. So fantastic. I'm glad you're here, but we're going to talk about a possible Festivus miracle to see if that will go ahead and happen. So we'll talk about that. I'm so glad our fans and friends are joining us as well, and we might have an extra special guest for our airing of grievances segment, because we have faith, but we also have a lot of grievances to go ahead and air. And we're going to go ahead and do that in just a little bit. But first, how can you support this show? It's simple. You hear Jeff and Lance and Dave and Big Bro Sco and Tony and myself say this all the time. You can go ahead and put some money into the tip jar that we call the super chat and get your stuff to the top of the line, and that's fine. But the real way to go ahead and support our show and our BTSC radio network is to go ahead and subscribe and like and tell your friends all about it, about everything we do here and how we are a BTSC Steeler Nation family. So we want you to be a part of us. And the big goal is, I know Lance has said 6,000, but our big goal is to get to 5,000 first. And we are so close. I think last count I saw, Tony, was like maybe about 80 subscribers. We're that close. It might be less now. So it's upon us. We want to get to 5,000, and I'd love to get to 5,000 by Christmas too. Tony?
Absolutely. I think it's a tremendous honor if we did get to 5,000. I mean, look where we were a year ago. We weren't even on camera. We were on the phone. Now we have a Google or whatever this. What is this? Google? Not Google anymore. What is it again? StreamYard. I'm sorry. StreamYard, and now we're almost at 5,000 subscribers. That's great. Just keep it coming. And what better way to make what more reason to make the playoffs than that? If they make the playoffs, then you're going to see like so many more subscribers, I think, because people are going to be so excited.
And you know what? The playoffs are really possible. They still are possible. And let's go over that before our special guest arrives for the airing of grievances. Let's talk about the game a little bit too. But first and foremost, let's talk about how this team makes the playoffs. And let's put aside the fact that they might not deserve to make the playoffs. Hey, 6 teams go ahead and make the playoffs, but not all of them are the number 1 seed. But if you're in that top 6, then you deserve to be there. Look, bunch of people in here. We want everybody to go ahead and chime in and have fun, because this is our Festivus episode, so we're going to have fun. I'm going to bring this up. Nap 1963 has always been a good buddy of the show since we met him last week. I've talked to Nap a lot, and he texted me and said, "Bad, are you going to go ahead and wear the jersey? The one that I was wearing at the beginning. I didn't finish the game yesterday wearing. I switched to James Washington in white. But yes, I'm still wearing my number 6 because as of today, that is your starting quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers coming up on Sunday against the Baltimore Ravens. And we're going to talk about the Ravens as well. Duck Hodges has been named the starter. Mason Rudolph is out for this game. So there are a lot of things to talk about, but hey, week 17 is upon us, and there's still a chance for this ragtag bunch of guys to go ahead and make the playoffs. And it's, when they were 1-4, we didn't think it was possible. When they were at 8-5, it was glorious. They're definitely going to make the playoffs. But now they've run into a wall. The offense is killing them right now, but you look at the defense, who's carrying them, and anything can happen. There were so many opportunities yesterday to win that game, Tony. Would you not agree?
Yeah, I mean, you come away with 3 points on the drive that Hodges threw the pick trying to hit Samuels in triple coverage. At the end of the game, it's 16-13, and you're not trying for a miracle touchdown there. You're trying for a game-tying field goal. So there were plenty of chances. Just like there always are, but I mean, what we're dealing with. We're dealing with second, third, fourth string quarterbacks and replacements at other positions. It is what it is. We just have to hope that the defense can come through one more week.
Tony, take me through your thought process while you were watching that game. I'm sure you were on the text line with Lance and Jeff and Dave, which I've been blackballed from. I'm not allowed on that text line for some reason, even though I do cherish those guys, all four of you that I mentioned, but I'm sure you guys were texting back and forth. What was going on in your brain?
Well, no texting for me. I was tweeting like I always do. I wasn't surprised. I mean, I figured it would be that kind of game. It would be, they would score anywhere between 10 and 17, 18 points. And, hopefully they could come up with a turnover and keep the other team, keep the Jets at 10, 14 points. But they just could not score enough points on offense. It went pretty much how I expected it to go.
So I'm looking, we have about 39 on the live chat, and I know we'll get upwards of 150 by the time this is out. A lot of people are worried. Let's bring some of those up. Mr. Marcus says, yeah, we're screwed with Duck. The Ryan O'Brien, I would love to know that name. That's interesting. Where that name came from. Dang, no Rudolph. I didn't think Duck got the stones to lead this team. Agree with O'Malley. Rudolph looked good when he came in, gave him a spark. Rudolph did look good when he came in, but also the first couple series of the third quarter, they got one first down.
Yeah, he did nothing in the third quarter.
So I mean, wow. I mean, is he just the guy that's not in there that we're now?
Well, it's like people keep saying. They've said all year it's a lot easier to come in, off the bench when you have no pressure on you and perform well, especially when the other team hasn't prepared for you. But it's a different ball game when you're the starter and all the pressure's on you. I think that's what we've seen. We've seen it several times. We saw it with Rudolph in week 2 when he came in for Ben. We saw it with Hodges against the Ravens when he came in through when Rudolph got hurt, when he had the concussion, and we saw it yesterday, or we saw it with Hodges against the Bengals. So, and yesterday with Rudolph. So I just think that's what we're dealing with. We're not dealing with. I'm not convinced that either one of these guys is gonna be the answer long term or short term. Hey, there's the boss.
I told you a special guest was coming for Festivus, and there he is, the one and only Jefferson. White Christmas is not a Christmas movie, Hartman. And
that's right.
He's joining us for Festivus. Jeff, welcome to the Hangover. And I believe this is your inaugural show with Tony Defeo.
It is. I technically started this show, so I wouldn't say it's my inaugural show, but with Tony, absolutely. Yeah, you're right.
What's up, Jeff?
How's it going, Tony? How are you? Merry Christmas. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Good.
So, I mean, now
could be better. Could be better.
Right.
The Steelers suck, so that's not good.
Could be worse. We thought it would be worse in September, so.
You're right. Keeping it in perspective. That's what I like about you, Tony.
And the other thing is we're not pining for the Minka Fitzpatrick pickback still. we're not, because that still could be
people
a pick
are
in the 20.
people are. You must not be reading the comments on a day after a loss. People are saying this Minka Fitzpatrick draft pick keeps moving up and up.
Wait until
People are
March.
idiots, but
Wait until March.
Wait till all the mock drafts that we can't write about because they don't have a first round.
Yeah, I was going to say, what am I going to do for articles because of that? That's the only thing I'm concerned with. I'm not concerned about the pick. I pine for the days when we're like, are they really going to take Artie Burns at 25? And or that.
Yeah.
Well, anyways, Jeff, I'm glad you joined the show. And the reason that we have you on here is because this is a very special day. Just for the last 23 years, we have been celebrating something called Festivus. And thanks to the glory of Ben Stiller and the wonderful Frank Costanza gave us Festivus for the rest of us. And the very special part of Festivus is the airing of grievances. And as Pittsburgh Steelers fans, we have plenty of grievances to go ahead and air right now. So let's go ahead and get it started. We are going to forego the feats of strength since we're not here, but I'm just saying right now that I think Tony could whip your butt.
Probably right.
No, I'm old. I'm old and out of shape. I can't even do a push-up. I'm not even kidding.
That's awesome.
That's a topic of discussion for another show.
Yeah, well, that'll be in March instead of first round draft talk. We'll talk about Tony's fitness. Or my fitness of fitness, this piece of pizza in my mouth. So let's go ahead and air our grievances. Jeff, I'll let you get started. What is your number one grievance after week 16 with the Pittsburgh Steelers?
Well, I'll tell you what I have a grievance with. I have a grievance with all these fans that are pointing the finger at Juju Smith-Schuster for the reason why they lost the game. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous because he did have 2 drops. And honestly, that last drop on 4th and 7, the last offensive play for the Steelers, I mean, come on. That was it was a bad snap. He just heaved the ball up into the air. If you literally think that this game falls on the shoulders of number 19, you didn't watch the whole game, or you didn't watch any of the game. You didn't see an offensive line that gave up 4 sacks, 7 quarterback hits, and 10.5 tackles for losses, people. Think about that. And a lot of that falls on the offensive line and keeping the defenders off of their running backs or their quarterbacks or their receivers if they're running the football. Blame Juju Smith-Schuster all you want for the fumble against New Orleans, for the fumble in overtime against Baltimore in week 5. But by all means, if you put this on him, you're sadly mistaken. And as Frank Costanza said, I got a lot of problem with you people. I got a lot of problems with you. And that's number one. That's what I'm going to start off with. Juju is the scapegoat. He fell on the sword. I wrote an article about this for the website today, but this was not on him at all.
Well, you know what? We are always looking for somebody to blame in the situation. And right now, Juju has been popular. There have been a lot of people in Pittsburgh media calling him out. One infamous guy, one slothy guy that used to be in pro wrestling, which I will just not even mention his name. He has been going after Juju forever. And now I'm not going to lie. Last week I was asking, are people getting tired of Juju and the antics and the 104 and going like that and stuff like that? And a lot of people came and defended him as well. But I was just asking the question. There's some things that I'd like to see a little less of. But as far as the football player, I have no problem with Juju Smith-Schuster, and we need a healthy Juju out there. And I would have loved to have seen maybe Mason Rudolph in there with Juju a little bit longer. I think that could have been a help. Tony, what is your thoughts on that?
I agree with Jeff. I mean, I thought it was idiotic the way people were jumping on that quote unquote drop at the end of the game. If you want to point to something else, point to the great play the cornerback made on James Washington when he had both hands on the ball in the end zone. And, that could have been the game winner right there. I have no problem with what Juju did at the end. And I have no problem with his off the field antics, because everybody loved it last year and the year before when he was a darling and catching 111 passes and having his bike stolen. Everybody thought he was cute. So I have no problem with anything he's dealing with now. His biggest issue, he doesn't have a quarterback throwing a franchise quarterback throwing him the football, and injuries, of course.
So he was basically Baby Yoda last year. He was cute, is what you're saying, Tony.
Yeah. I mean, fans eventually turn on everybody, especially if you're not producing. But there are obvious reasons why he's not producing this year. And number one is number 7. He's not in the lineup. So, like the off the field stuff has nothing to do with it. These guys, they're not living football 24/7. And the reason why, he got hurt has nothing to do with anything that he's doing off the field. Did anybody have a problem with him, buying Christmas presents for a whole store of kids last week? Does that make him a bad person? I don't think so.
Jeff, do you have any more grievances? Do you have just one? I mean, this is.
I've got plenty, but I'll let you guys go if we want to go around the horn. It doesn't matter to me.
We'll go around the horn. I know your time is limited. So, Tony, what is your grievance?
Well, I mean, this might not be a popular one, but hey, it's not supposed to be. It's all the people that are judging Randy Fichtner based on this year. I mean, if anybody deserves a pass for his performance, like it would be Randy Fichtner. I mean, he has no quarterback. He lost AB in the offseason. He lost Juju. He lost James Conner. I mean, what more can you ask for the guy? People keep talking about he has to be more imaginative. He has to use his imagination. I mean, it would take some real abstract thought to get this offense to produce this year. I'm sorry. It just if you look around the NFL, you look at history and what happens to teams like the Steelers, when they lose their quarterback, it's pretty obvious why the offense is struggling. You could have the best offensive coordinator in football right now, and it's not going to make these guys play any better, I don't think. So that's my biggest grievance.
Jeff,
I've been hearing it all year, and I just think it's silly.
Jeff, you're about to witness Tony and I in 3 years our first fight, because Tony, what are you thinking? This guy is garbage. He is unimaginative. I'm the one who said unimaginative and generic all year long.
I know, but a lot of people have said it. Well, of course they agree with you. Of course they do. Everybody they blame Todd Haley. And before that, they blame Bruce Arians. I don't think people like Wisenhunt. I don't think that people like Mike Belarkey. You can keep naming offensive coordinators. It's been going on since I've been watching the Steelers. Everybody hates the offensive coordinator because, obviously if that play didn't work, you should have called another one. If these guys had any kind of talent, real talent on offense, even if he was just throwing darts at his playbook, I'm pretty sure they would be able to produce a little bit better than they are right now. They just don't have it. They have a guy that was cut as their starting quarterback. They have somebody named Deion Kane, being expected to make big catches at the end of games. I mean, come on, it's not. He might not be the greatest offensive coordinator, but let's wait until he has a full cupboard before we judge him. That's all I'm trying to say.
Well, you've got Michael O'Malley and Dennis Sheridan are on your side. Yeah, we can talk about this all day. I see what you're saying there. I know you're talking personnel, but for me, and Jeff, go ahead and weigh in on this. But for me, I mean, I hate what Randy's done all year. I don't think he has adjusted to these players, and I don't think that I think he's followed a script, and he's very myopic. Jeff?
If you listen to my shows that I've been very critical of Randy Fichtner during the season for a lot of reasons. And so has Dave Schofield, and Bryan obviously has been the champion of that front the entire season. But the one thing that I thought about today, we're cleaning our house and doing all this stuff, and I just kept on thinking about comparisons with Randy Fichtner. And I'm going to do a show by myself tonight, probably around 9:00. So a little teaser there for those. Check it out live on YouTube here. And it's going to be based on Randy Fichtner, but here's where it came from. Bryan, listen up. If you were to rewind the tape and go back even just 2 years ago, would we not have been saying the same thing about Keith Butler? And now all of a sudden, Keith Butler gets a complement of players, and they make some good free agent acquisitions, mainly Steven Nelson. You bring in Devin Bush in the draft. How many people talked about Keith Butler this year? Not many. Not many. And so what I'm saying is that what did you say about Keith Butler this year?
For weeks 1 through 3, I was calling for his head, and then I laid off because you're right. but I'll counter
So
that. Go
I
ahead.
guess what I'm trying to say is that Randy Fiedner, if he's going to get a pass, he gets a pass this year. Now, I'm not suggesting that everything is gravy and that he's awesome. I still think he makes some boneheaded decisions. But then again, all coordinators do. And like Tony referred to, we can sit there and play the result all day and all night. And that is, oh my gosh, he ran a draw on 2nd and 11. I hate the call personally. But if the draw works, everyone's like, oh my gosh, what a great call. No one expected it to happen. It was against the blitz. There's a lot of factors to weigh in here, people. But the fact that you're on a 4th quarterback or 4th string quarterback, if you want to consider Duck Hodges a 4th string quarterback, the fact that Paxton Lynch is being interviewed by the Steelers media today as a potential candidate to play on. I mean, just think about that. And so for me, I compare it to Keith Butler. Everyone wanted Butler fired. The Steelers stuck with him. He gets his players. I'm just saying that maybe we all, myself included, should pump the brakes a little bit on the Randy Fiedner hate.
Well, the last thing I'm going to say on this before we move on to my next grievance is, what personnel did he have last year? He had Antonio Brown. He had Ben Roethlisberger. He had James Conner, Rosie Nix, Jesse James. Vance McDonald was doing something as well. And the line was playing so much better. So I know the personnel's changed, but he screwed the pooch last year in late November and December, and that offense was not very good, and that offense was not scoring points. So that's but I agree with everything both of you say on one side of the ball, but I still have a problem with his play calling and everything he does, and I just don't think he should have ever been hired when you have a situation when you don't even post for the job. No matter what business you're in, when a spot opens, you still have to post for the job. You have to post it to let people know it's available. It wasn't posted. No one had a chance to say, hey, I'm better, because they just wanted to appease Ben Roethlisberger, Mike Tomlin, who I'm a champion of, because you know what? I don't rip on Mike Tomlin because I trust. But Mike picked a buddy that he, Arkansas State that he coached with. So it's a situation like that where they didn't really open it up to anybody else. They just had their mind made up to get Ben Roethlisberger's guy, and he is so exposed when Ben Roethlisberger's gone. But we could go on this forever, and it's Festivus, and we have more grievances to air.
Go ahead, Brian.
So I'm going to go ahead with my grievance. It's my only one right now, and it surrounds James Conner. I'm reading all of this, and I've read it up here today, and I'm hearing the word and seeing the word glass. James Conner is made of glass. Look, I understand that he is not available all the time this year. And it's frustrating because when he's in there, he plays well. And he was playing well yesterday to start. When he came out, immediately I'm thinking, why is Snell in there? Because Snell was averaging 2.0 yards per carry. And I was really upset about that, thinking, why is this guy in here? And why are they going with this running back by committee? But here it was because he was hurt. And sure, we can talk about the fact that this guy is not available and he's hurt all the time. But look, and I know he's a feel-good story, but I'm going to continue that feel-good story. When you go through what that man's body has gone through with the chemo and with everything else in such a short period of time, your body is probably going to break down a whole lot more. And can we excuse the fact that are we just going to forget that with the fact that he is not available all the time because he's hurt a whole lot more? I just don't think we can forget what his body's been through as a survivor. And I think we should cherish when we get James Conner in the game. James Conner being out of the game is not the reason they lost. It could have helped if he was in, but we've got to lay off this guy. Fellas?
Yeah, I mean, results matter, and he hasn't been available. I mean, I get what you're saying 100%, and that's something my wife said yesterday when she was like, oh, Connor's hurt again. She said, well, cancer can do that, and chemotherapy can do that to the body, and I get it. I'm a health guy. I understand what that does to the body. I've never been through it, thank God, but ultimately, I've been around people that have, my father being one of them. And I know what the devastating factors that are of the radiation treatment, chemotherapy and stuff like that. But one thing I want to mention is that some of the stuff is out of his control. James Conner would help himself if he ran with a different style. And this may sound crazy, but watch Le'Veon Bell run and watch James Conner run. Le'Veon Bell is very, I guess I'll say he picks his spots where he takes the big hit in the contact. James Conner runs with reckless abandon. He always has, dating back to Pitt. He's like a bowling ball going down the field, and anyone that gets in his way is going to feel it. The problem is that reckless abandon style can lead to more injuries. So for me, I think that James Conner, if he wants the longevity, if he wants to crush that narrative that surrounds him almost yearly since he's been in the pros, he needs to work on that. There's really nothing else he can do. I mean, he's in good shape. No one's saying this isn't a Deuce Staley hamstring issue or a Jerome Bettis. He's coming in tipping the scales and failing the conditioning test at training camp. That's not the case at all. He would, in my opinion, if maybe little Franco Harris running out of bounds, you might take some criticism, but if you stay healthy, what does it matter? That's the only thing I would say. I agree with you 100%, Brian.
So there you go. With that being said, does anybody else have another Festivus?
Well, I want to hear what Tony has to say about James Conner.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Tony, well, no, I it's just, I'm sensitive to his history. I mean, I think it's a great story. I love the guy. I'm a big Pitt Panthers fan, but I'm just frustrated, not because I think he's letting the team down. He's not taking care of himself. I'm just frustrated because I think he's a great all-around running back. I think he's their best at picking up the blitz. He's probably their best pass catcher now. Jalen Samuels is their best pass catcher, but he's basically their best all-around running back. And their offense is just so much better when he's in there, and they're allowing the offense to go through him. So that's why I'm frustrated. Not because I think he's lazy or he's not taking care of himself. I just people aren't going to be sensitive to that, to his past forever. Eventually they're gonna want him to produce, because that's what the NFL is all about. That's what fans want. They want the stars to produce. They don't want them, they're counting on those guys to win games for them.
That's a good point.
Yeah, I can't argue with that as well. And I understand all kinds of frustration. I do. I just wanted to bring that up because it's something that I'm very passionate about as well. I'm also very passionate about the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I do want them to go ahead and make the playoffs. But my question for you fellas is, if they make the playoffs, is it futile? I mean, is it worth it for this team to make the playoffs? I already have my answer. I want to hear from you.
You never pass up a chance at the playoffs.
I know.
At the absolute worst, it's experience for a very young football team. A lot of these players, or I shouldn't say a lot, because a lot of the players were on the team in 2017. It lost to the Jaguars in the divisional round, but thanks to John Oates, they lost that game. Anyways,
I heard that. I definitely heard that. Well,
no, but
you won't be decking the Darryl Hall and John Oates this holiday season.
No. But I've always believed, and this team is the same way. As cold as they are right now, they've been red hot at the same time. You get in, you do some damage. I would never turn down a chance at the playoffs, no matter what.
Tony, if they make the playoffs, is it another week of false hope?
No, it's another week of hope. That's what being a sports fan is all about. We're living on 30 years at the time they beat the Oilers in overtime in 1989, the wild card game. They only won one playoff game that year, but people have been talking about it for 3 decades. So if they get in and they somehow knock off the Texans, or even more remarkably the Chiefs, then it's going to be something we're going to be talking about for forever. So no, I don't think it's futile at all. I want them to make the playoffs, and I want to have a playoff game to look forward to.
The reason I brought that question up, that's my second grievance. Everybody's given up right now. I don't care who you put out there. I remember 1989 fondly with Bubby Brister and Merrill Hodge and guys like Zeno and Stock that you've never heard of. Mike Malarkey was your tight end. It was just a ragtag bunch back then, and they made a big splash in the playoffs. And they were in the same situation on the last. Actually, they had more things that needed to go right for them than just this year. So I remember 1989, and I'm bringing this up as a grievance. Look, let's not give up. There's no reason to give up on this team. If you don't think Duck can do it, what if he has that game? You're facing a Baltimore Ravens team this year for the second time without 5 stars. Lamar Jackson, Mark Ingram, Marshall Yonda, Earl Thomas, and Brandon Williams.
Yep.
So
yeah, they're all out.
So with that, you definitely have a chance.
Take care of your business and see where the chips fall.
Yeah, and the Texans, they're going to have something to play for. They still have the number 3 seed in play when they start at kickoff. So they're not going to just lay down and roll over for the Titans. They're going to want to knock. First of all, they're going to want to knock their division rival out of the playoffs. So I think it's a more realistic chance than it was last year, other than the fact that Ben Roethlisberger isn't in there against the Ravens.
Well,
and Bill O'Brien already said that the Texans are going to be playing their starters, that he's not benching anybody. When they play to win. Now, that can change later in the week. That might just be some pomp and circumstance to give the Titans something to think about. But as of right now, that's what they're saying.
Well, excellent. I'm glad you brought that up as well. Jeff, one more thing before I let you go, because I know you do have a show tonight, and I want to save some stuff for your show tonight. I know we will all be tuning in as well. So real quick, what are the details on that show?
Yeah, I don't even know the name of it yet, but it's kind of a primer. I'm doing a test run for the off season. We're gonna do multiple shows a day, certain days throughout the, like, for instance, we tried this on Thursday night on our Steelers preview. We did the after party, which surprisingly was a success. Really good numbers for that separate show. We're going to be doing things like that, maybe Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or Monday, Wednesday, Thursday. I don't know, but I'm just going to try it out, see how it goes. I'm going to do a solo show tonight. So this will be about 9 o'clock, but I have one more grievance if I can, Brian.
Oh yes, please.
I'm not sure if you talked about this in the lead up, but a lot of people were mentioning it in the live chat, and I thought I'd bring it up. My grievance is with these reports and with Ben Roethlisberger and the whole he might not play in 2020 talk. This is obviously something we have not covered on BehindTheSteelCurtain.com yet, but ultimately I look at this and say, I mean, I'm not surprised. You're talking about a quarterback that's 38 years old who's coming off a surgically repaired elbow. There's no guarantees with that whatsoever. However, I'm not shocked either that Ben might have said something to someone, and then that someone tells Chris Mortensen, which is the root of all these rumors and reports. Nothing, if you're a logical fan that saw that Ben Roethlisberger goes down with the throwing arm, and in this case, elbow injury, you knew that there was no guarantee that he would be back and ready in 2020. You knew that. It's just fact. If you're someone that, well, just wait till Ben comes back. I hope Ben's able to come back. Everyone on this panel right now is hoping that Ben's able to come back. But I guarantee this is nothing more than a couple words got twisted one way or the other. I'm sure you'll hear from Ben Roethlisberger once the season is over. They'll have him on WDVE or 93.7 The Fan, and he'll say, I plan on coming back, and yada, yada, yada. The guy hasn't even thrown a football yet. He's not going to be able to throw until I heard about late February, March. In that case, he doesn't know, because if he goes to throw a football for the first time and that thing, it pops, essentially, he's done. He's done. And we know that Terry Bradshaw's career was ended by an elbow injury. Other quarterbacks' careers have been ended by an elbow injury, but people just pump the brakes. There's no reason to, burn down the UPMC sports facility because Ben Roethlisberger somehow has rumors that he might not play. Is anyone surprised? I mean, really, are you really surprised? The team's down in the dumps. They're coming off 2 straight losses, and all of a sudden, boom, Ben Roethlisberger's in the news. I'm not shocked. I know Tony's not shocked. I know Brian's not shocked. I got a little grievance there, so there you go.
You know what? I agree with that wholeheartedly. The reason I think these comments come up is we always need something new to talk about, and the first person to throw it out there. It's like throwing spitballs sometimes in this business. So I do understand that. Jeff, something that I did want to ask, is there ever a good time to go ahead and burn down a sports facility? I mean,
I thought about it after the game on Sunday. No,
well, M&T Bank aside, but
yeah. No, I mean, you know what I mean. You're right. I mean, there is never a good time for it, but I'm sure they have insurance.
Yeah.
I like the way you think, Jeff Hartman. Last thing, today is a very special day in Pittsburgh Steeler history. Tony and I were on this earth. Jeff, you were not. This is the one of the big anniversaries. 1972, December 23rd, the Immaculate Reception. So I'd like to ask both of you. I know you have no recollection of it. I have no recollection of it. I'm sure I was digging it. I'm sure I was in some kind of onesie, Steeler onesie, cheering that on. But I have no recollection. But what I will say, what I want to know from the two of you is, what does this day in Steeler history mean to the success of this franchise and the lore of this franchise? Jeff, I'll start with you.
I can only speak through my father, who obviously lived through it, and he speaks fondly of the Immaculate Reception as kind of the one play that really sparked the Steelers from a fan base perspective, from a national perspective. A lot of younger fans might not even know that they didn't win the Super Bowl that year. And that was 72. That was the Miami Dolphins undefeated season. They lost to the Dolphins. Shockingly, how crazy is it that the AFC Championship game was in Pittsburgh? They were undefeated. And they rotated. They rotated.
Yeah, it was a rotating basis back then.
Which is really, it's in terms of today's game, just really funny. But ultimately, I look at the situation and the lore of that play still resonates, and the fan base wouldn't be the same without it. And so my dad talks about what he was doing during it. It's kind of like there's certain moments in your life where you always know where you were. My parents can tell me where they were when JFK was assassinated. Everyone can tell you where they were on September 11th, 2001. For my dad, he could tell you exactly what he was doing during the Immaculate Reception back in 1972, where he was, what he was wearing. It's pretty crazy to hear those stories. I was obviously not even a twinkle in my parents' eye at the time, but ultimately it's something every Steeler fan knows. If you don't know it, read about it, watch it, learn it, because it's your history, and it's something that you should cling to. So I don't think the Steelers would be the same without that play. I don't think they would be where they are today without that play. Not that they wouldn't have won Super Bowls, but in terms of being the Steelers, that play started it all.
Jeff, before I ask Tony, how many Steeler fans do you think were conceived after the Immaculate Conception? Excuse me.
Yeah, there you go,
Immaculate Reception.
You're right both ways. A lot. We'll put it that way. A lot. Track the date from 9 months after that, give or take a few days, weeks, and I bet there's a lot. So
if you ever watched the show This Is Us on NBC, it's centered around the Pittsburgh Steelers, and the triplets were conceived in a Froggy's bathroom in Pittsburgh during Super Bowl 14. That's a part of that show, that it's all centered around Pittsburgh. The opening shot of the series, a man's wearing nothing but a terrible towel. So Pittsburgh means a lot to this family and the series, but the fact that they were conceived during that Super Bowl is actually amazing. And I know it's fiction, but I still think there's so many 46-year-olds on this earth today because of Franco Harris. And don't forget the Frenchman, Frenchie Fuqua.
Frenchie Fuqua. Absolutely. So I'm going to let you guys go. Hey, enjoy the rest of your show. And it's good to be on with you guys. Hey, have Merry Christmas. Happy holidays, gentlemen.
Happy holidays, Chef.
Thank you,
Take
Jeff.
care.
We appreciate you.
Yep.
Jefferson Hartman. It's good to have him on, Tony.
Absolutely. I was surprised. You told me right before we went on the air, but I was kind of nervous. I never really talked to the boss before.
Dude, so you've worked with me for about 3 years. That's the smoothest host around. I will tell you right there. I mean,
jealous.
It is so great to be on a podcast. And I've known him for a while, and we've been friends. I consider him more of a friend than the editor and the boss. But I tell you what, the guy is really, really good. I actually think that's a guy that could go national someday. Tony, I do want to go ahead and ask, before we move on, I want to ask your thoughts on the Immaculate Reception, because this is a very special anniversary today.
Yeah, I mean, it means everything to the Steelers. I mean, we're talking about a franchise that won no postseason games for 40 years. They barely even participated in the playoffs, and then just like that, their whole franchise, their whole legacy changes on one of maybe the most improbable, well, immaculate play in the history of the NFL. I mean, how many times has that actually happened since then? You can't even really go back and look at any other play that's even close to that. And it goes back to what we were talking about before about, do you want them to make the playoffs, or is it futile? We've lived off of that play now for my entire life. I mean, I was born in 1972. I was 7 months old when that play took place, and they lost the next week. They lost the very next game, as Jeff pointed out, because they lost to the Dolphins in the AFC Championship game. But nobody remembers that because it was such a great play, and it just goes to show you that you can have a memory that doesn't involve winning a Super Bowl. So that's what it means to me. It means it's what being a football fan is all about.
Oh, my dad is like Jeff's dad. He can tell you everything about that day and where he was and what he saw. Another person that I know that could tell you exactly about that day is Frenchie Fuqua. And I had an opportunity to drive Frenchie to the airport in 2008, I believe it was. He was doing a show in Chantilly, Virginia, an autograph show. Somebody asked me, hey, can you take Frenchie back to the airport? One of the greatest guys ever. One of these days, I'm going to try to get him on this show. And if I would have had some forethought that this show was going to be on this date, I would have tried to call him up. I have his home phone number. I would try to go ahead and give him a call, but he is a fantastic gentleman, and he has told me how much money ESPN has offered him for the truth, because allegedly he's the only one alive that knows the truth about who that ball hit first. And he says that he will take it to his grave.
Mm-hmm.
So one of these days we're gonna have to get Frenchie on here. That would be fantastic. But a great anniversary. 47 years ago, the Immaculate Reception happened, and it was just a glorious day that we will never forget in Pittsburgh Steelers history. So I wanted to bring that up. But I'd like to get back to the Hangover. And, hey, we're still in flux. We're still a little upset about this game yesterday. And I know this, we've had a super chat that's been lingering for a while, but we were talking to Jeff and other things. I want to bring this up. Snowman, a great fan of the show, says, does anybody want Sean Sarrett's head on the chopping block because the O-line isn't the same? My thought on that is Mike Munchak was more than just a coach. I believe he was the coordinator of the running game as well, Tony. What are your thoughts on Sean Starrett?
Well, it's like a lot like Randy Fichtner. I think it's hard to evaluate his performance this year based on so many problems with the offense, with personnel. I mean, you look at the game yesterday, it looked like the Jets were blitzing 6, 7, 8 guys almost every passing play. As good as that line is, it's hard to block, protect the quarterback if there's more coming at you than you can block. So I just think it's nobody fears their passing game. Therefore, they're lining up to stop the run, and on the way to the running back, they're going after the quarterback throwing a pass. That's what I think is going on here. I don't think guys like Marquise Pouncey, for example, forgot how to snap a football because Mike Munchak isn't here. I don't think David DeCastro forgot how to block because of that, and I don't think Big Al forgot. I just think it's the line, like everything else on offense, is compromised due to injury.
That is very true. Now, Tony, as we go forward, the Steelers still have a shot to make the playoffs, and I'm looking through a lot on the live chat that I did not get to see because of everything we were talking about. How do they make the playoffs here? Is it something that you can go ahead and break down?
Well, yes. If they beat the Ravens next week and the Titans lose, then it's a wrap. They're in. Based on better record, they'll have a 9-7 record, and the Titans will be 8-8. Now, it's my understanding, if the Steelers lose, the Titans lose, and the Colts win, and I think the Raiders lose, then the Steelers would win there, because I think the Colts would finish second in the AFC South. They would win the tiebreaker over the Titans, so they would settle that, and then the Steelers would obviously beat out the Colts based on the head-to-head. So there are two as far as I can tell, there are two ways. The most obvious one is the one I mentioned first, and then the one I just stumbled over a little bit is the second way. But if the Colts, Steelers, and Titans all finish at 8-8, the Steelers would get in.
Wow, that's that's something that you really got to consider, and a lot of things happening. You got to win, and you're in. Only if the Tennessee Titans lose, and like Jeff said earlier, the Texans are coming to play. Mark Davison said earlier, today is his 30th birthday, so happy birthday to our good friend down under, our Australian friend. We're international guys, and I remember that because he called us mates, and I love that. I've never been called mate before. I think that's really cool. So the thing with this, we've got to root hard. Now, the reason the Steelers game was moved, I don't know if everybody knows this. It was a 1:00 game, but because the Titans and Texans were a 4:25 to any of those games, if something's already decided. So that's the NFL being savvy. And
I understand. I assume the Chiefs and the Colts play at 4:25 too. If somebody can confirm that for me, because that weighs in on what the Texans would do. Because if the Texans think they have nothing left to play for, they might rest starters. So if the Chiefs and the Chargers play at the same time as the Steelers and the other game, then I think that helps the Steelers too.
Yeah. So, and then there is still an opportunity where the Oakland Raiders get in. Everybody's got to lose, and there's some stuff there. Michael O'Malley, and I want to bring up Michael earlier. He said, "Hey, are we cool?" Michael, anybody can disagree with me. I'm fine. My wife disagrees with me all the time.
This is all good. This is all good fun. This is not anything personal.
Yeah. I have never. I've got two rules. Tell me two things that offend me. Tell me I'm not funny, and punch my wife or my mom, and then I'll get a little upset. Probably that's the only way you could go ahead and offend me. So don't do any of those things.
That'd be way worse than talking about Randy Fichtner, I think.
But Michael asked, when do we actually draft a quarterback? It's at the top of the list, then O-line. It's weird because you could possibly do it next year in a second and third round, but Tony, is that an answer when it's hard to get that first round quarterback.
Yeah, I don't think you draft at this point. I don't think you draft Ben's successor until he's done. So if he decides to hang him up this year for some reason, like Jeff said, if he realizes that he can't go, it's another Bradshaw situation. Then maybe you draft it. But then again, you don't have the draft capital this year because you have a second round pick, and as we're finding out with Mason Rudolph, a second and third round might not be the best place to get your next quarterback. I mean, a lot of these guys, so many of them, an overwhelming amount you find in the first round. I mean, it's a hard position to evaluate. It's a hard position to hit on, and your percentages go way down after the first round. So I think you wait until Ben retires, whether that's next year, 3 years from now, whenever, and then you draft a guy and you see if he floats instead of sinks. That's when you do it. You don't draft him whenever Ben's still here. It's just not going to work.
So with that being said, Tony, we're going to go ahead and wrap up this week. But before we do that, I want to ask you, what do you think they need to do to beat the Ravens? And how possible? I'm talking about, where is your confidence level here about beating this Baltimore Raven team?
Well, it went up a little bit when I realized that a few key players are going to be out, but that doesn't mean anything because I'm not sure if the guys that the Ravens are putting in as replacements aren't going to be better than what the Steelers have on offense. So I'd say my confidence is about 50% that they can win that game, and my confidence is about 75% that the Texans can win. So I guess it's not bad considering everything that's gone down this year.
Jesse George says this, and I love this idea. I don't want to lose this. Fitzmagic, I'm sure we will still be playing. He will still be playing when Ben retires. We could bring him in. I think they're the same age, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, Fitzpatrick was the quarterback in that game in 2010 when Schweezen made his debut by kicking the game-winning field goal against the Bills. That's how long he's been around. So he's not a youngster.
I remember him in 2005. the year the Steelers won the Super Bowl, making his debut for the then St. Louis Rams, and they were talking about how this guy is a Harvard quarterback, and they were just raving about it. And he had a little bit of magic early on too, as well. He has made a great career from, if you had a backup Hall of Fame, he would be a first ballot backup.
He would certainly look good, pretty good this year for the Steelers as their backup.
And let me ask you this. I actually think this is something they should do. And everyone's going to say I'm crazy, but not that it matters anyways, because the Pro Bowl doesn't mean anything. But I think you should have a Pro Bowl or an All-Pro backup quarterback position. You have an All-Pro special teamer,
right?
You have an All-Pro long snapper. Then I think you should have an All-Pro backup quarterback and have.
And if you want a perfect example of somebody who would be a Pro Bowl backup this year, it's Teddy Bridgewater. I mean, where would the Saints be without him? I mean, how long was Drew Brees out? 5, 6, 7 weeks, and they kept winning. That doesn't happen. That's pretty rare. So, I think that would be something to consider, because if you can find the right one, he can save your season.
Well, something that I think we are going to do, Tony, when this season officially ends, it could be next Hangover, could be after that. We'll have our year-end awards as well, and we'll go ahead and do that, and we'll try to think of some fun awards. Let's go ahead and bring this in. We're still talking about the Jets game, and we'll take those. This is the Hangover. We'll take those. But Darren Dalton wants to know what our most favorite Steeler moment ever is. And I'll go ahead with you, Tony. Oh,
it's easy. When Super Bowl 40, the final seconds of that game, when I knew they were going to win, because I never thought I'd experience it as a fan. I experienced it when I was 7, and then I went through all the down years of the 80s and all the disappointment in the 90s. So for them to finally win one, for me as an adult, it's my favorite sports second ever.
I have so many, but probably one of the most magical at the time for me, I go back to beating the Colts, and I'm not talking about. I could talk about the tackle and Ben Roethlisberger, but I'm talking about the fail Mary by one Jim Harbaugh in 1996, in January of 1996. I cried. My friends poured champagne over my head like I won. I was living in Elkins, West Virginia at the time, and they knew how much this meant to me. Here I am sobbing, and then the bubbly goes in your eyes, and that hurts, man.
that was a great moment. That really was a great time.
But that's great. That is a great moment, and we've talked about this on the show before. I got punched in the face during the Troy Polamalu run back celebration against Baltimore to go to Super Bowl 43. I don't know who punched me in the face. I'm pretty sure it was not. I'm pretty sure it was an elbow, but I took something, and I took something hard. It almost knocked me down. Maybe somebody was mad at me, but I'm not controversial with my friends. What?
Were you at the game, or were you at a bar?
No, I was in my basement here at Steelers Central, and there were about 5 of us jumping and hugging, and we were in a scrum, and then I took something that I didn't bleed, but I was surprised I did. I did bleed. I bled a little, actually.
Wow.
Come to think of it, but I got
worth it, though. Worth
in the nose. Yeah, I mean, it was the best blow to the face that I would ever take. Isaac Aguilera, great fan of the show. Bring back Dobbs, LOL. I really can't say anything on that.
Welcome to life without Ben. We've been here. We talked about that before.
So we've been talking about that. You could throw in your favorite Steeler memories as well in the next. We will go ahead at the top of the hour. Go ahead and be signing off. So feel free. Feel free to go ahead and send those in. Dennis Sheridan mentions that bad does bleed black and gold. I appreciate that. I love this team. I love this team with all its warts. I even I mean, I'll root for Randy Fichtner as much as I rip on this guy. I'm going to root for. Look, it's not popular right now. I'm still sporting my number 6. Plus, I just got it, and I've got to at least get
Right.
get some use out of it.
And the funny part is how people are saying put Paxton Lynch in, and here's a guy who's played in 5 games. He has less experience than the other 2 guys now. So what? I mean, other than being a first-round pick, what has he ever even proven? So
you know what? I mean, if it's going that way, and you need a spark in the third quarter, and it's just not getting any better, you might see him. So that's definitely a possibility as well. Knapp, yeah, definitely. That Harrison 101-yard pick 6 in the Super Bowl was absolutely amazing. I will give you one of the most memorable things that we were talking about, false hope. I remember, I believe it was 2013, and the Steelers were playing Miami. And it was in December, and it was snowing like crazy, and they were losing that game. And Miami was a bad team, and they were having a horrible game. And they do the lateral drill at the end of the game, and Mr. Third and Fifth is taking it down the sidelines. And here he did step out at the 11-yard line just by a hair. But as it was happening, I flung myself on the floor in front of the TV, and my beloved dog Polly, she was a little dachshund, a little chubby dachshund. She's no longer with us, but she would run down next to me, and I'm slamming. I took my hand for some reason. I'm like, go, go, go. And I'm slapping the ground, pounding it with my hand. And I'm going, and I leave it there, go at the end, because I thought he did it. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, my floor feels like it's on fire. I scared the heck out of that dog. She peed all over my hand.
Oh wow!
I probably took a year or 2 off her life there. I'm so sorry, Polly, but it was just. But it's one of those memorable moments that we will never forget, and my wife brings it up all the time when we talk about the Steelers and my fanaticism. I could probably go forever. I know you guys could all go forever too. Tony, let's wrap this up. Festivus for the rest of us. We're hoping for a Festivus miracle. I think it could happen. I think it might go their way. The offense has to pull some things out. I think they could do it. Tony, you've already said you think there's a possibility as well. But as far as yesterday's game, it was a disappointment. It's not a death knell. It might be next week at this time. We might be talking about the end of the season. Maybe this is just me saying, maybe it's just a situation where this is all a part of the narrative and all a part of a team that doesn't belong here, and another part of the story, the Cinderella story of them finding a way to rise up and get there. And that's what I'm hoping for. That game, I don't know what would have happened if Mason Rudolph stayed in that game. It's very easy to say they would have won if he stayed in. It's easy to say that, but then you also, his stats were pretty good, 15 of 20, and the way he came in and threw that touchdown pass. But we don't know what would have happened.
Right.
We got to trust in Duck, and we've got to trust in the. I know it's hard right now, but we've got to trust that he can pull out something against a depleted Baltimore Ravens team. And one of the reasons that Mark Ingram is not playing, it's not because it's a coaching decision. He's actually hoping to get back for the playoffs. He's hurt. So this is something I worried about with Harbaugh, but I think when he saw that he's being smart and he's not being Harbaugh, where he's like, he'll do anything just to screw an AFC North team, because he's that guy. I've seen him go for 2, being up 33 points, going for 2 late in the game just to stick that in the ribs.
Right.
But wow, I'm looking forward to this game.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping they can do it. So let's keep the faith. and hold out one more week and hope we're celebrating next week. Because like Jeff said, like you said, like the reason I brought it up is there's no false hope.
Right.
There's hope if you're there, and if you're one of the 6 in there, you're one of the 6 with a chance until your torch gets snuffed out. So with that being said, I want to go ahead and mention to all of you how much I appreciate every single one of you in this chat. Whether you agree with me or disagree with me, there's one thing I know you will agree with me on, is that we love the Steelers together, and that when we lose and when we win, we've got somebody to cry and to celebrate with, somebody to complain about, and somebody to high five over the computer with. So with that, I thank you so much. The reason we do this is because of you. Right. We have a passion for it. You have a passion for it. And we love sharing this time with you. So thank you so much. Whatever you celebrate this holiday season, whether it be Christmas, Kwanzaa, Hanukkah, a number of things, I want to let you know how much I cherish you all. Tony, the same with you. I cherish you, buddy.
You as well.
You're one of my Steeler brothers, and I love you, man. And I'm really glad to have all of you here. So thank you so much. Have a blessed and safe holiday. Merry Christmas, my friends. Tony?
You all have just been hung over. Go Steelers.
Good night, my friends.